Hello everybody, Mannix here. Got another tabletop knife review for you right here, right now. Feel free to subscribe, hit that little bell notification if you do not want to miss weekly knife, gun, gear, flashlight, EDC videos of all sorts. Feel free to support me on Patreon as well. Link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get right into this. This is going to be on the Spyderco Manix 2 FRCP. This one happens to be the original kind in the CTS BD1N blade steel. They still make this knife with that blade steel, but they no longer make it with this blue handle. It's with a black handle now. I don't know if it's translucent. I don't think it is, but this handle is translucent. It's a translucent blue, and I think it's beautiful. Really, really cool looking. I think they called it the dusk blue or something back in the day when they made these. But good luck finding these now. It's a little bit harder. You can get used ones here and there, but they don't make this model anymore in particular. But everything I'm going to tell you is exactly the same with their black version. Same blade steel, same locking mechanism, same specifications, dimensions, materials, etc. Let's get the specs out of the way first. Overall length is 8.03 inches, the blade length being 3.37 inches. Its edge length is 2.88 inches, and its thickness is 0.125 inches. The handle length is 4.66 inches, weighs 3 ounces, according to their website. Tip up carry only, but it is swappable to the left side, as you can see. FRCP handle, which stands for fiberglass reinforced copolymer. Not sure what its difference is in comparison to FRN, or fiberglass reinforced nylon, GRN, GFN, whatever you want to call that stuff, Zytel, Zyx. Glass and plastic mixed together, if I'm not mistaken, but this one is translucent. That's really, really cool looking. Maybe that's where the copolymer comes from. Who knows? But it's a strong plastic handle. Cool. Cage ball bearing locking mechanism. We'll talk about that. It's a side actuating lock, similar to the Benchmade axis lock in some ways. Thumb hole right there, so it is 110% ambidextrous, because not only can you swap that pocket clip to the left side, but the thumb hole is ambidextrous. This locking mechanism is ambidextrous, so it's completely ambidextrous. Lefties rejoice. Or maybe you're a righty, but you just want to use it in your left hand or carry it in your left pocket. Hey, it's good for that too. Volcano grip right here, which is bi-directional. As you can see how it functions just by looking at it right there. It almost kind of mimics a spider web. It's really cool. It's a symmetrical pattern that all originates from this surface right here, this flush piece with the Spyderco logo on there, which is pretty cool. And that's also smartly where the pocket clip lands on, so it doesn't rip up your pocket as much. All the tension's going to be right here. Very smart. Spyderco has always done that on their knives for as long as I know, so good job on that. Big ol' lanyard hole right there. Completely closed off. Big ol' long FRCP backspacer. I really like the way this looks. I like the translucent blue. But again, even if you get the black version, that's a cool looking knife too. But I like this blue. I like color once in a while in my knives. Wire clip, by the way. I don't know why I didn't mention that until now. Stonewash finish on the blade. Beautiful. Beautiful. Love stonewash finishes. Jimped on the bottom choil right there, as well as the thumb ramp. You can really, really lock your index finger and thumb in there. Very good jimping, just like on all Spydercos. They do a great job with their jimping. Very, very purposeful. We do have jimping cutouts down here on the handle itself as well as the spine of the handle. And if you look very closely, we have more jimping right here on the FRCP, as well as right here too. So very, very aggressively jimped. It's not extremely purposeful when it's not on the steel, but it's as good as it can pretty much get on FRCP, so it's fine. It's better than not having it, I suppose. But again, the blade is perfection. So really, really lock your thumb in there. Cool. So what's the whole pitch of this knife? Why is this knife cool? Why is it awesome? Because it's extremely lightweight, just 3 ounces. That's very, very lightweight for the amount of cutting edge you're getting here. It's a pretty substantial wide blade. It's not a small knife by any means. It's pretty damn big, actually. It's not huge or anything, but medium, large. You can see how wide the handle is, how wide the blade is. Not the most delicate tip ever. It's pretty stout, actually. It's a very stout, big, fat knife for its weight. It's actually pretty impressive, and that cage ball bearing lock not only is fast and fun to fidget with, as you can see right here, but it's also very strong. The way it works is, if you're not familiar, there is a steel ball bearing in there, a tempered ball bearing, and it's captured within this FRCP cage, hence cage ball bearing lock. That cage right there just makes it a little bit more user-friendly to grab onto, to disengage. The Spyderco Dodo has the same locking mechanism, but it's an exposed ball bearing, and it's a little bit slippery, harder to get to. This piece right here just makes it a lot easier to grip onto. And there's a spring in there, as you can see very closely. It's constantly putting tension this way. It's constantly shoving forward. It also acts as a nice detent, sucks it back into place, as you can see right there. So it keeps it in, so it's not going to shake out too easily. Actually, it's very difficult to shake this knife out. You really got to snap it out right there, so that's not going to be an issue. Do not worry about it coming free out of your pocket. It won't happen unless there's user error involved, or maybe you have it a little too loose, or maybe if there's something wrong with the lock. But anyway, it's constantly putting pressure on it, and as you can see, when the opening in the blade's tang makes its presence known to the lock and it's timed correctly, boom, it just shoves itself in place. And it pinches itself in between the stop backspacer or stop bar and the bottom of the tang of the blade. So the positive force on the cutting edge is stopped by this lock bar, and the negative force is stopped by the ball bearing. Now the ball bearing, when it stops the negative force coming from the roof of the tang of the blade down here, it not only gets transferred to that ball bearing, but then to the stop bar, and vice versa. Positive force, the energy of that gets stopped by the stop bar, and then that gets transferred back down to the ball bearing, and then back down to the tang of the blade. So you have kind of a circular three-piece locking mechanism right here. So it's very, very strong. The force is kind of divided amongst the three pieces right there. Very simple, very ingenious, very fast, very powerful, very, very amazing, great locking mechanism. Absolutely love the cage ball bearing lock. I wish it was on more of Spyderco knives. It's side actuating, so it's ambidextrous. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to get to. It's very fast. It's got the fidget factor, as I said, so you can do this whole opening closing thing without touching the blade whatsoever. And regardless of the locking mechanism, it is a very fast knife. You don't need any wrist movement. Shoots out every single time. The big old thumb hole right there, cut at 90 degrees, is very easy to get to. It's very easy to flick open. And of course, you can open it conventionally as well. Despite not having any metal inside of there for the washers to come into contact with, it's still very smooth. It's not the most smooth knife in the world, but it's very impressively smooth for FRCP. So it's fast, it's light, it's got a very strong locking mechanism. And although there are no steel liners in here, so horizontally it's not going to be the strongest knife, pretty much everything else about it is hunky-dory. If you pry and twist with this thing, you might ruin the internal mechanics of there if you really, really give it a gouge. But I wouldn't be doing that with a folding knife in the first place unless you have something that's really strong, got big old thick steel liners in there or something. But for this knife, for the lightweight Mannix, it's not really intended to do that, and that is just fine. How's this for a stop pin? That's our stop pin. It's a stop backspacer, bitch. You look very, very closely, you can see that the cage is kind of on a bias towards you, so that makes it even easier to pull that way. Very comfortable, just like all Spydercos are. I love the lines to the handle right here. Fits my hand just perfectly. Really, really like this grip. The thumb can use the jimping right there. My index finger uses the jimping right here. This little curve right here matches my fingers very well. Just you can really, really lock your hand. You pick this up and you're like, oh yeah, that's perfect. You can scooch up here if you want. Use that little choil right there. You get even more control, lock your hand in even more. Just excellent. Very, very comfortable this way as well. You can scooch down, probably down to here if you want maximum reach. That's cool. And then you can use that lanyard hole if you wish, just like I always say. Reverse grip carries just like this, and that's also very, very comfortable. You can bite your thumb down in there. If you want to do an ice pick grip, you can do that. If you want to choke up, have more control, and do an ice pick grip, you can do that too. It's very light, very balanced, very nimble, and it's strong enough for what it is. If anything, the blade feels a little bit heavier than the handle. It's not like the most balanced knife in the world or anything, but you can't really do much. If they're trying to lighten this knife up as much as possible, they could have made that blade thinner, but then you're going to lose some strength. So I'm glad they kind of kept some stoutness and thickness to that blade. It's still a very, very, very lightweight knife. Speaking of lightweight, the pocket clip, the wire clip. Can't get too much lighter than this when it comes to pocket clips. Completely skeletonized. Works very, very well. I absolutely adore the Spyderco pocket clips. But the wire clips especially, I really, really like these. I like how they look. I like how simple they are. A lot of people probably may not even know you have a knife on you because that clip is just it's almost like a cloaking device because it's so skeletonized. Although technically it's not skeletonized. It's literally just a bent, tempered wire of steel, but your pants will kind of be exposed through this opening right here, so it'll be even harder technically to see the pocket clip. It is a little flimsy. You can see it kind of moving around. It feels almost like it's gonna break, unfortunately. When I use this, when I naturally grab this knife, my fingers land on the wire clip, and I feel like I'm gonna break it. I know it's not going to, it never has, it's never been an issue, but it feels like it. That's the one hit I will give this knife. I don't like that, but for what it is, you can't really, there's not much else you can really do for such a thin pocket clip. If you're trying to make the knife as lightweight as possible, there's only so much you can do, so I can forgive Spyderco for that. Functionally, it's great though. I know nothing's gonna happen. It's not gonna break anytime soon. It just kind of feels weak to me. That's just how that is, unfortunately. Love the Volcano grip. It's bi-directional, as you can see, so those dimples kind of work as a grip when you are pulling your thumb this way, when you're pushing your thumb, I should say, the opposite direction. The cutouts in the little checker pattern we have going here work as well. So it's very ergonomic, aggressively jimped, aggressively skeletonized in there. It's very lightweight. Love that cage ball bearing locking mechanism. Love this leaf-shaped blade. It's good for piercing. It's good for slicing. It's going to be pretty good at slashing. It's a very jack-of-all-trades blade, and it's not super delicate. Some Spydercos have a very, very delicate tip on there. This one's a little bit more stout, so it's not going to be as good as piercing as, say, the Paramilitary 2. It's a better overall use blade. I do love the thumb holes, as always. Love the FFG, love the stonewash finish. It's going to aid in rust resistance, and it's beautiful. CTS BD1 performs a lot like VG10 in some aspects. Very good edge retention, very good rust and corrosion resistance. It's a great blade steel. I really love it. It's not like amazing or anything, but it's good. It's a damn good blade steel. Now let's talk about price. You can get these black Mannix FRCPs anyway for about $125 right now, filming this early 2023. Is that worth it? You know, that's expensive. Spydercos are very expensive these days. I wish this was more like $100, but again, you're gonna find these for 125, maybe $130. These retail at $182. The black versions anyway. So again, it is expensive. I kind of wish these were back when they were in the day, like 10 years ago, when you get these for like $70. But they are not, unfortunately. We're over 100, 125 now. It's just a lot of money. It's just an FRCP handle, which is not really much going on there. It's just a simple lightweight handle and a CTS BD1 blade on there. Cage ball bearing locking mechanism, but it's not that expensive to produce these things, I don't think. It's just a spring on a ball bearing in there. So looking at the sheer amount of materials we have here, I mean, the locking mechanism, it's not that simple. It's more expensive to produce this than a lockback or a liner lock, obviously, but it's not like extremely expensive or anything. So looking at it as a whole, yeah, it's kind of a lot. I wish these were cheaper. They are worth it, absolutely. You're getting a great blade steel, an amazing heat treatment on there, just like all Spydercos are, razor sharp edge, very good ergonomics. It's strong enough, and again, extremely lightweight, very stylish. It's a good looking knife too, I think. So it's very purposeful. Yes, it is a defensive blade, I will say, because it's fast. There is a very good traction plan on here, but it's a great EDC knife too, because it's not super heavy. It's very lightweight. It's a little bit wide, but you have a lot to hold on to. You have a lot of control here. Very ergonomic, very comfortable. You have a lot of different options to hold this in different positions. I have no obvious complaints about this knife, except possibly the wire clip. I don't like how it feels weak, but it's just a preference thing. Functionally, it's an absolutely great knife. I could not recommend it more. I could not say anything better about it. It's fantastic, but it's expensive. Again, I wish this was a little cheaper, but you know, functionally speaking, it is worth it, although material-wise, I kind of wish it was just cheaper. It is made in the US, though, I'll give it that. It's pretty much a fantastic everything knife. It's not the strongest knife in the world, but if you want it to be stronger, go get yourself a Mannix G10, pretty much the exact same knife, although we have a different blade steel and functions a little bit differently, but we have G10 handle scales and steel liners in there instead of FRCP. But pretty much everything else is the same, and then of course we have the standard hourglass pocket clip instead of the wire clip. So if you want that extra strength, you like everything about this, you like the ergonomics of it, you like how it functions, you just want something a little bit stronger and you don't mind carrying something a little bit heavier, go get yourself a Mannix G10. But aside from that, again, it's an excellent, amazing 10 out of 10 knife. I cannot recommend it more. Just wish it was a little bit cheaper. But other than that, like I said many times, absolutely, absolutely worth it. Let's just weigh this guy just for craps and giggles. I know they said it's 3 ounces. What does my scale say? Is it really 3 ounces? 2.92 ounces. It's even lighter than what they said. Excellent. Excellent. Can't really get much lighter than that. So absolutely, absolutely recommended. Spyderco Manix to FRCP.